Hi, good everyone. All right, so we're gonna focus on the Amazon rainforest today, right? And this is a nice example because this particular rainforest is actually one of the most significant, one of the most symbolic you would actually hear in the world, right? Given the fact it is considered to be the lungs of the earth. Unfortunately, we know and we understand that this particular area is actually under siege. We will talk about that later on. Anyways, so from this little image here, you can actually see we have meandering rivers surrounded by all right, a vast expanse of green. Now, if you look specifically, you would actually see these trees of vegetation have very distinctive layers. All right. Although you might have the majority of it being green, some of these emergent trees, which, for example, this particular tree here, is actually striving and vying for light. And because of the fact it receives an abundance of energy, it will tend to have a very distinctive foliage. Now, everyone should know that this particular rainforest is very much unique. Why? It maximizes upon the amount of energy, right, that is received from the sun. Right? The energy is in fact abundant. And as a matter of fact, you have a great diversity of species, both plants as well as animals. All right. 1 square hectare average of rainforest, right, could actually yield over 100+ species. Over. That is just a very simple estimate. All right. We can see a multitude of different species. And obviously, if there are in fact different plant species, there will also be a variety of animal species as well. And this is something to note because diversity is in fact given precedence due to the abundance of energy from the sun. And that abundance of energy from the sun is what is pivotal, right, to fuel the entire landscape, the ecosystem, all the processes, right? In this case, we could also see the hydrological cycle at play. For example, this is in fact a flowing river, or I should say a fall, right, in an array of a sculpted landform where you can see boulders and whatnot, which have actually been subjected to erosion and they have been broken down. This water continuously flows. All right, this is in fact a freshwater terrestrial environment, which is in fact present due to also the presence of trees and vegetation in very close proximity. All right, as you can see, this freshwater also contains a lot of nutrients. Now, it might appear to be relatively brown, but that brown there is associated with nutrients, which is in fact associated with downstream movement of sediments, right, from the further upstream areas. Right, these sediments are in fact what you call alluvium, which will eventually settle in the lower course of the river, which marks very rich flood banks, right, or very rich environments to which other type of vegetation can in fact exploit. All right, class, look how lush this is. All right, look how green this environment is. All right, and the reason for that green, why rainforests are considered to be evergreen forest, is because of the fact that they are in fact receive an abundance of sunlight and also to receive an abundance of rainfall. All right, the latitudinal location also influence the significant rainfall receipt. As we'd of note in the notes, we mentioned it exists generally between equatorial rainforest, that is, exists generally between 5 degrees north and 5 degrees south of the equator. All right, so there's a maximum receipt of energy. There is also an abundance of moisture, right, which is in fact being received as well in these particular in this particular environment. All right. So this being said, students, let us keep in mind basically that this particular region is very much flourishing. All right. This is in fact a YouTube video that I decided to kind of basically do a video upon. As you can see, we've seen a variety of different species. Yes, we might have pathways where perhaps indigenous people may have simply established themselves. All right, and they have utilized the forest as a haven, as a home. This is in fact their habitat. All right. The difference between they and these people and ourselves is that largely in human society today we are very very exploitative. All right, which means we simply utilize and we consume a lot. Unfortunately, our consumption levels, given the fact that our population The population of the Earth is in fact very, very high. This is very much important to the point where the impact upon the ecosystem is under threat. We would have undergone through the entirety in terms of what are in fact the characteristics associated with a rainforest. All right. We understand the different layers and whatnot. Look at the foliage from this particular view. The landscape, it is plastered with green. That surface area of leaf, or well, leaves rather, right? Remember, plants, they are living, they will simply also get rid of excess moisture. And this, what it does, it produces a lot of moisture at the surface through the level of evaporation and whatnot. Um, they can also be in relatively close proximity to waterways, or they may extend further inland, right? This is in fact a freshwater environment, more for like a marshy environment, which it's actually associated with. All right, but the fact of the matter is that the entire area is said to be relatively green. Okay, so that being said, students, we know it has a variety of species. We understand that energy is actually utilized. We know fully well that this particular region per se, right, is very, very much important to the point where look at this display, all right, of varied vegetation types. They are all structured, they are all layered on a very unique topographical setting. The landmass is not uniform, it is varied. And that is the reason why every single organism has a niche. You call that niche is actually also called a role. Each organism has a functional role, including individual plant species. All right. If this ecosystem is in fact subjected to destruction, right, obviously it will impact upon the human society. Not only those living in that particular environment, we can see interconnected road networks and whatnot going through here. Right? But this also shows that the region itself can be largely fragmented, and that level of fragmentation is a problem. All right, look at some of these vines that are in fact swinging down from these trees. All right, some of these vines can be utilized, utilize the trees as a source of support. Some of them are in fact stranglers, which I would have actually mentioned, for example, the bird vine and whatnot. All right. You may also have an interplay of epiphytes, bromeliads, right? You may have ferns, little to no ground layer. As you can see, this image basically shows more of an aerial view, right? But if you go deeper down, you will see the actual rocks and whatnot are in fact covered by specific vegetative types, which are in fact like mosses and lichens, right? They can grow on very damp and also relatively dark conditions as well. All right, so students, this video is basically to kind of sensitize you all to the fact that the entire region, the entire landscape as we know it, be given population increase, can potentially result in ecosystems to be destroyed. Now, I didn't mention definition for what an ecosystem is, but an ecosystem is a very distinctive, or I should say, a very dynamic community, right? Made up of a variety of different plants and animals, of a variety of different species, right? Correlating, and all of them are very much interdependent upon each other, where each of them has a very functional role, all right? In the absence of non-living things, for example, soils, light, temperature, moisture, and whatnot, you really cannot have the living things, such as plants and even animals, right? Look at these animals basically existing here in a serene environment where they can utilize the environment for the purpose of shelter, and this is in fact their habitat, which is their residence or their homes. All right. And every single organism has a role where some of them might be responsible for seed dispersal. These very species, they are in fact different colors and whatnot, but at the same time, they may in fact be able to control existing organisms, which may be conceptualized as pests, are the same. All right. So the entire ecosystem is what we consider to be interdependent. All right. If there is no water, there can be no distinctive vegetative growth. If there is insufficient water, right, plants can be subject to wilting. In 2004, the Amazon rainforest have actually experienced a slight drought, right, and a large section of the rainforest was subjected to, well, it was in fact very much desiccated, all right. A lot of vegetation was in fact lost because of humanly induced fires as well as clearance for cattle ranching and stuff like that. Right? So water is very fundamental. Look at the flow of the water here. It breaks apart the rocks. It provides the nutrients, much of which can be dissolved in water, all right, and can be absorbed by these plants, whether it be from one location to another. And that is very unique for the diversity which we can see here right now. All right. Now, class, this particular pathway is very significant because it shows it is nothing which is very distinctive. If significant period of time passes, this particular pathway can simply be covered by a lot of trees. Look carefully at the vegetative types on the further elevated sections of the video itself, right? Of the screen, that is. Look how relatively dark it is, especially at those low-lying regions. This may symbolize natural fall of vegetation, or perhaps it may be symbolic of humans clearing pathways. But this is negligible, right? Because you can see the surrounding vegetation will quickly absorb that, even though we interfere with the environment slightly. That is a difference, class, between the people, the indigenous persons of the past, and also it is completely different to how we explore the environment today. All right. Today, students, we can see from this screen little shot here, we can actually see there are light poles, electrical lines, and whatnot. There's also a paved roadway. Like I mentioned earlier, that is a fragmented section of the forest. Students, there is something called habitat fragmentation. That is a major issue, which is affecting the proliferation and the entire integrity, all right, of the rainforest. All right, animals can be struck by vehicles. The roadways can be used as a very unique transportation route for perhaps legal as well as illegal logging. Even poachers might maximize upon this particular route, and that would negate the productivity of the environment. This view shows a meandering river, which we would have covered in chapter 4. A meander is a winding or a side-to-side river. Just remember that little term. This is what a meander looks like. And it's also plastered by the surrounding vegetation and forest. Right? Some of these rivers can be very extensive, very large. And look how natural it is. There are in fact no major human intervention here per se, except you would have actually see certain points where there are in fact little settlements here and there, or little clearance and whatnot in certain parts. Last but not least, class, everything would be compensating each other. For example, the amount of moisture being derived from the leaves via transpiration and evapotranspiration. All right, it basically encourages a volume of vapor to loom over the forest. This is the reason why, class, in equatorial rainforest, for example, the daytime can be relatively hot. But given the consistency in terms of evaporation and evapotranspiration and the volume of moisture being put out into the atmosphere, right, this vapor rises. Right, this is actually in fact moisture which is just residing over the surface. It will eventually rise, which will contribute to a very distinctive cloud cover, which would obviously result largely to an extent where afternoon showers or convectional rainfall can be generated. That is the reason why afternoon showers are often associated with equatorial rainforest, even though prior to that, in the earlier periods, like say before midday, the sunshine can be relatively the sunlight can be relatively pronounced, all right, which results in a very distinctive channel or column of rising air masses. And eventually the rainfalls, afternoon showers. So this entire forest receives rainfall generally on a daily basis, right? And that is one of the reasons why it is considered to be evergreen and lush. And obviously we can see from the screen here how significantly dense it is. All right. So keep that in mind. And a little food for thought. I mean, the video was I know it's a little bit rushed because I have like a 15 minutes period within this screencast-matic. I don't go beyond that, right? But I hope it was informative and whatnot. So this is a little video to kind of jog your memory and whatnot, right? Nothing too in-depth, but it's something to remember, right? Something to keep in mind. All right, students, you'll keep good. Bye.